Excel 2016, Module 7, pages 408 through 411. Okay, 408 has a lot of information on it that you need to read about validating data entry. It's not particularly difficult, but it is very picky, and you have to do it just right. So please make sure you read all of that before we move on. Okay, at the top of page 409, to create the validation rule for the registration date cell. All right, it's always going to warn you if you took a break, we need to be in winter activities and we need to be on our receipt worksheet. I'm sure you're there, but if not, get there. All right, we need to go to cell B3. So here's B and here's 3. We are now on cell B3, right? Remember when you have these, when we've already had the defined names, if you're having trouble, just look for the colors and you can see it's like a darker color to ensure you that you're on B and you're on 3. Okay, on the ribbon, click the Data tab. In the Data Tools group, click the Data Validation button. So here's your Data Tools group, and here's your Data Validation button. Okay, and we want to go with Data Validation, and that opens our Data Validation dialog box. And by the way, what I did was I hit the down pointing arrow, so then I had to select Data Validation, but if you just hit the button up here, it opens that Data Validation dialog box right up. Okay? On the Settings tab, okay, we're on Settings. Click the Allow arrow. Here's Allow, and here's the arrow. Do you see it? Allow and the arrow. Then click Date. Okay, so you can see we've got whole number, we've got decimal, we've got list, we've got date. These are not in alphabetical order, which is a pain, so you're just going to have to hunt through and find things. Okay, so we have Allow, Date. You want to ensure that cell B3 is not left blank and requires users to enter a date value in the cell, so make sure that the Ignore Blank checkbox is turned off because we do not want it to ignore the blank. Okay, if this is checked, it ignores a blank, and we don't want a blank to be allowed. Step number 7. If necessary, click the data arrow and then click greater than or equal to. Okay, so here's data, and it says between, and that's not what we want. We want greater than or equal to, which is right there. All right, so now we've got allow, date. We turned off our check mark and ignore blank. Our data says greater than or equal to, right? Step number 8. Enter 1/1/2017 in the Start Date box to provide an example of what to look for when checking the cell. You cannot use data validation to simply check for the presence of data. You must provide an example for checking it. Okay? So right here, you need to be careful how you put this in. It needs to go 1/1/2017, and you always need to stop and check that, please. Okay, got it? Go ahead and flip the page. Okay, on page 410, just take a second and read about creating an error alert style and message. And then we'll move on to create the warning error alert for the registration date cell. Make sure that cell B3, okay, we should still be exactly where we are. B3 is the cell that's selected, and we have this data validation box open. Okay? In the data validation dialog box, click the error alert tab, which is right there. You use this tab to select the type of error alert and enter the message you want to appear. Make sure that the Show Error Alert After Invalid Data is Entered checkbox is selected. That's right here. Show Error Alert After Invalid Data is Entered. Make sure the check is on. You want that one turned on. Okay? If unchecked, the error alert won't appear when an invalid value is entered in the cell. Step number 4. Click the Style arrow. Here's Style. Here's the arrow. And then click Warning. Okay? You can see it changes the little icon that's going to show up. This style allows the user to accept the invalid value, return to the cell, and re-enter a valid value, or cancel the data entry and restore the previous value to the cell. Step number 5. Click in the title box and then type Invalid Registration Date. Okay, if you type slow, just pause the video and do that. Okay. Invalid registration date. The text will appear as the title of the error alert box. Step number 6. press your tab key, and you can also just click down that error message box. And then type this whole big long sentence in number 6, okay? Enter a registration date after 1/1/2017. You see that? You've got like 3 sentences to type, so go ahead and pause the video. I'm going to pause mine too and just get it typed in, and make sure you check for errors. Okay, did you get it all typed in and check for errors? Okay, so take a look at figure 7-17 and make sure that your data validation dialog box looks just like the one in the picture. When you have everything correct, go ahead and hit OK. All right, at the top of page 411, please read about creating an input message. Input messages are very important when you're using a form. All right, to create an input message for the youth name cell, select cell B4. Okay? You will create an input message for this cell. On the Data tab in the Data Tools group, click the Data Validation button. Okay? Data tab, Data Tools, Data Validation. Click the Input Message tab. You enter the input message title and text on this tab. Step number 4. Verify that the Show Input Message when cell is selected checkbox contains a check mark. So right there, it has to have a checkbox or this is not going to show up. If you uncheck this option, you cannot enter a new input message, and any existing input message will not be displayed when the selected cell becomes active. Step number 5, click in the title box. Type youth name. Okay. This title will appear in bold at the top of the screen tip above the text of the input message. Step number 6, press the tab key to move the insertion point to the input message box. Then type enter the youth's first and last name. Okay. You don't have to punctuate this, by the way. That period is actually in the textbook in their instructions. Take a look at figure 7-18 and make sure that your data validation dialog box input message looks just like the one in the book. And when you have that all set, go ahead and click OK. And now, as you can see, when you click on the cell, it lights up, and there's the title of your screen tip youth name, and it says enter the youth's first and last name. And you're ready to move on to your next video.